Helmets. Welcome to the Helm developer call for July 8th, 2021. Let's see, we have a patch release scheduled 3.6.3 for Wednesday. So there's still some stuff to be resolved in there. If anybody's got some time, go ahead and review some PRs and check some issues. Anybody else have anything on that?
I just know that between Matt Farina and I, we went through all the issues at one point during all the PRs at one point during the week. So I think we're down to the point where either maintainer or contributor has to do an update and turn around on it, or we'll move it to the next patch release.
Okay.
Right. Farina just joined. Is that right, Matt?
I think so. I'm going to take one more pass at it probably tomorrow, and then we'll see if there's anything else that shows up that still needs handling. But there's some of them that may just need a quick approval from a second maintainer, but I'll take a pass at it tomorrow.
Okay. And on to discussion items. OCI registries indexing. Who wants to lead that one?
Is there still anything else to talk about? Because I know I haven't done anything else since last week.
I went and read the apt-get to OCI thing to see how they were handling things. And so they are storing the apt index inside of an image, inside of an image layer. And likewise, there's no particular locking mechanism or anything on that. So they're essentially doing for apt the kind of thing we were talking about last week and 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was thinking about writing up an experiment as a plugin would be a good next step.
Sorry, to clarify, a plugin for storing an index in an OCI registry, or so an experiment for the experiment, or
an experiment for the
proposing here?
experiment to put in index in there just to see what it would be like. Yeah, just to try to come up with an experiment, see what it would look like, how it would work. That's probably a good next step. And I wouldn't want to tie the existing OCI work to it. This would be like an additional step.
All right, so it sounds like we have a path forward to at least start fleshing that out. And then Farina, you also had something about the repo flag, username, password.
Yes. So there are a couple of issues here around, I'm trying to remember right now, of the Helm repo flags. When you use, hold on, I got to refresh my memory here real quick. I should have written a better description in here. Yes, I think the question is what release can some of this go into? So some of this stuff, it was marked as a bug, but I wonder if it's actually a feature change and it needs to be bumped out. So if I look at the issue that's there, 9599, it talks about how Helm pull with a repo doesn't use the credentials set when you do a Helm repo add. And it's marked as a bug. But I've noticed that if I start looking around at everything, I don't know that anything else actually uses this. And so is it a bug? It said at one point, Helm pull used it, but what point was that? Maybe I'm missing it, but I didn't find it. And so I'm wondering, is it a bug or a feature change?
I think I'm partially to blame here on this one. So I think the behavior was that you had to explicitly add repositories since Helm 2 and Helm 3, and then there was a feature addition in Helm 3 where you could set that repository on the fly and it would read from that. So I think it was a feature addition by a pull request I merged because I didn't understand that was that was the behavior that was expected at some point. So if that helps clarify.
So it was merged and now it doesn't work anymore?
Maybe I have to read the issue before I.
Because
Speak
it's
my
saying if I
mind.
use the repo flag without specifying username and password, that it would actually grab the username and password out of my previously added repositories.
I don't recall this ever being a use case.
'Cause that's what the issue is for. That's there is 9599 is for that.
Yeah, because I know the repo flag on the fly was not a feature that was at some early point of Helm 3, or it was Helm 2. I can't recall exactly if it was ported over or if it was implemented in Helm 3. So the cases around how certain fields are being pulled from the repositories.yaml file as opposed to not being present in the feature flags, I don't know if that was a tested scenario or an expected scenario at any point. So I think this is a case of here be dragons, and it's not totally clear when it was first initially introduced whether that was an intended use case. And so it's hard to determine if that was a feature or a bug. So maybe the best course of action would be to look at previous versions of Helm 3, try that test scenario and see if that did work. And if it didn't, why or why not? I think there's a little bit of spelunking that might need to happen here to determine whether it's a bug or a feature.
Yeah, and the reason that I ask is the change actually makes sense to me. I actually think across all of our stuff, we should let you specify the repo and pull it in, or if the repo's been set, the username and password should always, I like the flexibility there. It's just a matter of the version. Is this something that needs to wait until 3.7? And that's my only query about it, is at what version do we release this to make sure it's an appropriate version? So I guess I can take an action to go look back at some of the previous versions and see if I can figure this out. If it's actually a feature ask and it needs to go into 3.7.
Yeah, it's unclear from the OP if it was like if that was expected behavior or if that's just a feature request. So yeah, I think that is the right course of action here, is to look at previous versions of Helm and see if that was an expected use case, whether intentional or not, and then we can determine whether it's a regression that we need to fix or it's a feature that should go into 3.7.
Okay.
To me, at least glancing at it real quick, it looks like it might be a regression. Because if you're passing flags to override a certain field, that override probably should happen no matter what repo you're specifying. But still probably worth it to take a look.
I mean, in this case, it's yeah. Okay, I'll go double check to see if it's a regression or not. It was just about the release. Okay.
And then also Farina, GitHub Actions.
Yeah. So we've been having lots of trouble with Circle CI lately. When I've gone to do releases, I think actually when I push the tag now for Circle CI to complete its run at release time, I think it's 3 times as long as it used to be to handle everything. It's now the compiling thing where once I push the tag, I used to wait around and be able to chit chat. And I know I've screen shared with some of you before and they've shadowed, and we're actually able to do it in a timely manner. Now it's like a half an hour from the time I push the tag to be able to do anything else. It's just an eternity for long. And now we're seeing issues with timeouts on linting that have gone up. First they went up once, now we're looking to increase it again. And it's all Circle CI's performance with what we're doing is going down. We actually leverage Circle CI less than we've ever done or have done in years and years. And we're having slower performance. And so I think it's time probably to move to GitHub Actions, especially since the CNCF has a good relationship with GitHub. And if there were problems or issues, we could do it. Another issue we've had is there have been a number of times where a pull request, in fact, one of them that I need to go back to that's been approved by 2 of us, but hasn't been for this next release, but hasn't finished its CI run, it's because Circle CI responds for this pull request with a 400 error. No idea why, but randomly these show up. And so we're starting to get some random errors in webhooks and things like that that we can't figure out because most of the time it passes. And then periodically we get flakiness and issues, and it's causing us problems. And so that's causing workflow issues. And so I think that's one of those other things that means we should move everything over to GitHub Actions. And I know Josh already started working on that. So anybody have any objections?
I think this also reduces our CNCF bill because I think we're on a paid circle.
No, we're not.
Oh, okay.
The charts team was, I believe, but I don't think the Helm. Oh no, we're not. Okay.
We were never on a paid circle. It was always the free tier. In fact, we used to get the error when we had charts that we were going above the free tier level, but they never enforced it on us.
Until now.
Yeah, and to provide some additional context here, when we initially were using Circle CI, there were features in the free tier like being able to run things in parallel, which was great because then we could run cross compilation builds in parallel with each other. But features like that and general slowdowns have caused the entire pipeline to slow down. In addition, with Helm having more compile targets being run in serial, I can only imagine this getting worse over time. Whereas GitHub Actions has features to be able to run certain workflows in parallel with each other. So we could go back to that previous workflow where we could basically compile every single compiler target in parallel with each other. And that would probably help speed up our builds by quite a bit, because that is one of the biggest pipelines, or one of the biggest blockers is one, the unit tests, but then also compiling each individual architecture that we want to compile for the Helm release assets and then upload that to Azure Blob Storage.
Okay. So if there's no objections, we'll slowly move towards this.
I just want to make like one or two comments. One, I did put up a PR for the PR bit because I think the release one requires kind of some secrets to Azure. So I think I do have access to that, but I figure we can do one and then the other. And then the second thing is, as far as the Golang CI lint tool, there's actually a GitHub Actions for that I found, but it just runs it. And I know we have a test style make target, and it's just something for us to consider. Like, it wouldn't help us run it locally, but it's kind of more streamlined.
And I've been getting an error that what is it, the linter is actually deprecated, and so we probably need to look into that.
Yeah, I've been working on a PR to fix that. It's just gonna, the only issue with that is any open PRs are gonna have to rebase on top of it. And that's why I've been kind of not jumping into it too quick. Because anything merged after that gets in, if the code doesn't touch that area, then master could fail.
Yeah, I got it.
Am I unmuted? Yeah, also if we add the GitHub Actions, we can keep them in parallel. And we don't need to turn off Circle right away, which was the other thought I had. So as far as like having to rerun things, we can treat one passing as a pass.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good idea to just start moving stuff over, because they're discrete steps where, like, style, if style fails on action, then it's going to block the PR, even if it's not running on Circle. So we can move stuff over one by one. And I would definitely prefer that, so we don't end up having to debug the whole pipeline.
The other nice thing is we can actually start doing Windows testing, for example. not just POSIX testing in Circle CI or in GitHub Actions. So, okay. It sounds like this is good.
Yep, we good to move on?
Yep.
All right, Fisher, you have something on your hip for Helm triage
Yeah.
containers?
Yeah. So I'll drop the link here quickly. Oops, the redirect. Here we go. So I submitted this Helm improvement proposal kind of talking about a new role as like a project maintainer for Helm. There has been a couple of people in the community who have expressed interest in being project maintainers. Specifically, the two people, I think it's CND, CND OIT 18. I don't know how you would pronounce that GitHub handle. And then YXX Hero has expressed interest in becoming project maintainers. Yeah, but it's CND. I think it's like China Do It 18 is what it stands for, but I could be wrong. In any case, they are interested in helping out the project. However, one of the cases and one of the risks that I'm a little bit concerned with is because we haven't necessarily met these people in person. They haven't been here on the Helm developer calls. We haven't met them at conferences. So at the same time, I would love to have them join the project, but I don't have a gauge for like who they are, what's their expected time frame, and what they're kind of expecting to do there. So I thought this would be an interesting way to onboard them as new maintainers and help out the project. So we can do things like issue triaging, merging PRs, and kind of going through the whole shadowing process without them becoming like full access to absolutely everything, like the Azure resources and everything else that's in Helm. Because at the end of the day, we do have 5 million downloads when it comes to the Helm project. So it is a little bit concerning bringing on people who might be new to the process and has that or like production level access to both CNC and or CNCF and Helm related resources. So this is kind of like an intermediary role between becoming a full-blown project maintainer and just kind of like onboarding. So I'm curious what other people think about this process. And I'd love other people's feedback on that one, if you can give feedback.
Do you have a link to the role that you're talking about precisely?
Yeah, I dropped it in the Slack chat. It's in Helm community. It's pull request number 199. And it's currently HIP number 9,999 because of HIP 1. It hasn't been assigned a HIP number yet, but it's in there.
Great, thanks, Fisher.
Forwarded.
Also, we got 10 minutes to go, so any volunteers? Looks like we have somebody for notes, moderator or issue triage. If you want to drop it in chat. And then Mark is updating a single repo safe.
Yeah, so we'll do that one quick. I wanted to mention my humble opinion about the new role, but if we can just so I can get that settled. We had discussed a feature of V2 that wasn't ported to V3, which was updating a single repo. So I pushed a PR. And it's been approved. I just haven't merged it because there was one concern from Dr. Butcher in an issue somewhere about dependencies and updating one repo. So you have a chart depending on chart A, depending on chart B, and we're only updating the repo for chart A. And does that cause an impact or not? So I wanted to get an okay or a not okay before merging on that point.
What is the user story if that? What does the user see if they update repo A, and it depends on something in repo B that is not updated?
I haven't checked. I had assumed, well, in my mind, it was the responsibility of the user who had a very specific case where they wanted to update a single repo, but I can dig further. Ferna, you wanted to?
I think the reality is because you won't have the updated index information. If you go to do something like a Helm dependency update, it will just use, and it was in a different repo, it'll just use the best of its knowledge from that repo. Although, doesn't Helm dependency update force an update of everything?
I haven't looked at this PR to see if this changes dep update to only use one repo.
No.
I don't think.
Just
Yeah, I
the
think dep
update.
update would you update them all anyway, so
Yeah.
wouldn't impact that.
In that
If there's
case,
a
it
risk-
doesn't introduce much of an issue on that side. It would be a pretty exotic use case where somebody would run into trouble on this, and running an update of all of them would fix it. So it's probably okay to go forward.
And it was in Helm 2 already, and we didn't get complaints of issues.
Yeah, it's really only when you're updating dependencies that this can turn into odd behavior where one dependency gets pulled in at a different version on your machine than my machine because my machine is back a version on the index or something like that. So if we're ruling out the dependency update side, this is probably okay at this point, given the way chart resolution currently works.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Helm,
I'll go ahead.
Helm dependency build uses the chart lock file, which is pinned to a particular version. So if you're on an outdated version of the repository that doesn't have that version, then Helm dependency build would fail. But yeah, in the case of Helm dependency update, as long as all the repositories are updated, then semantic version constraints could still work, and you could expect that two users running the same dependency update can get the same updates on their machines. So as long as that case is covered, I think we should be fine. I'm curious, what is the concrete use case for why you would want to update one particular repository to get that particular version, as opposed to just updating everything and ensuring that you have all up-to-date repositories?
Yeah, so it's not critical. It's go ahead, Matt.
Oh, you asked a use case. Go ahead. If you got one, I can explain.
Yeah, the reason is a concrete use case for us. It's in CI. When we deploy, we have a virgin Docker image that doesn't have any repos installed. So the recipe always does a Helm repo add, which is fine. But then when I run that same recipe on my machine, I already have the repo. So the Helm repo add doesn't do an update. So people have started doing Helm repo add followed by Helm repo update, which is in CI is very inefficient because we update, for nothing. So I was thinking, okay, in those cases, you could just say Helm repo update, my own repo. Or
I definitely would agree to that. I would like to have a little more control over what I want to update. That +1 to that.
So that's the scenario. But I mean, that being said, thank you, Andrew. But if it introduces a risk of inconsistency, then we have to. That's more important. So I can, I guess, follow in the PR. I'll try to check if there's a. Basically, what was said was if Helm dep updates everything, then we should be safe.
Yeah, and it does.
It does? Okay.
It does. So in fact, I think there's a flag to skip it if you want to skip it, quite frankly, because otherwise it does update it. So that's not a worry. I think this one's okay because our worrying situations are actually handled, which is around dependency management. Butcher, do you see any issue with it, or can we move on to the next one?
Scott's got his hand up and has it added up for
sorry.
I actually can just let that skip because I think other people have covered in the chat the efficiency questions. Essentially, I was going to say, my use case was primarily just memory footprint. So.
Yeah, I think we should just go ahead with this one.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and then Scott, you have the next issue too. The next discussion item. Maintainers track for KubeCon North America.
Yeah, mainly I just wanted to update folks. I know a few people, for example, Butcher, Farina, Karen on this call, others know that we submitted, but I just wanted to let everyone know that it was actually submitted rather last minute. So there are still a few details they didn't really need everything, in terms of exactly what we're going to be talking about. They just wanted a detailed description of our plan, which we have, and it's a technical talk focused on charts, specifically focused on the application distributor role that's listed in our personas document, or in our roles document. So I thought it was a great idea. Farina suggested it maybe last month because we've never done a talk like this. And I thought it was a fantastic idea, so we put something together and submitted it. Exactly how that works out, we have to, figure out. But the most important thing is that we focus on the end user and make sure that we really deliver this content well for them, so that not only can folks who show up to that get that information, but anyone who wants to check the recording can get that information, and we can link it to the docs and so on. So that's pretty much it for me. Unless I just wanted to link the information there, our working document for everyone. So in case, people on this call have specific ideas of an important point they want to be made, just let us know. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Kyle. And we got 2 minutes left. And Mark, you had another issue on there for Dependabot.
Yeah, Cobra 121 is out, and Dependabot hasn't picked it up. I'm not sure how that works. Do I submit a PR manually, or?
Okay, so
Anybody know?
while we were talking, I took a quick look, and I have no idea off a quick look why Dependabot didn't do anything for this. I don't know if we have too many open Dependabot issues we haven't dealt with, or we've been bad actors, but that I don't think it's documented as being a thing. So I'm really surprised it didn't create a pull request for this.
Okay.
I don't know why. So if you want to create a pull request, go right ahead.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
And last note, welcome Karina as a Helm maintainer.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Glad to have you on. All right,
See,
I
now
believe. Sorry, were you saying something?
I said, now you can't get rid of me.
Don't we? There's something about singing a song and giving an acceptance speech, right?
Yeah, the Helm anthem and then a speech.
I tried this on Martin and it didn't work with him either. I couldn't get him to sing on a recorded Zoom call.
Nope. Even unrecorded. Mhm.
All right, and then that's time. So I'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.